What's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, this time for the Belgian Grand Prix. We're just going to sort out our timeline, so I'm going to do race simulations and driver promotional filming, and then we're going to go to the durability section and purchase a resource point generation upgrade to get that to spec 1, as it's the only department we still had on spec 0, except for marketing, but that's very expensive. We're looking to continue some good form, as we had a podium in the last race in Hungary, and we're going over the summer break now with one upgrade failure, it seems. Firstly, we have an interview with Will Buxton.
Do you see your relationship with your second driver being long-term, or will you be looking for someone else if you're successful?
Well, if they give us good results, their position's safe. That's basically what I'm saying. Jack Aitken needs to consistently score points, or he'll be replaced.
Do you think you'll be able to become a challenge to the top teams in the future?
That's obviously our aim. I mean, do you ever come to F1 and not plan on winning?
You've managed to get your team into a good position. How long do you think it will be before you can challenge the big three?
Well, we're consistently best of the rest. I mean, that's where we are in the championship, so it's only a matter of time.
You've got one of the top teams in the Constructors' Championship. What's your secret to scoring those points?
Our aero package is very good. That's where we've probably heavily invested. Our power unit's pretty good as well, but I think our aero is one of the best in the grid.
Your second driver really seems to be improving at a rapid pace. How dedicated are they?
They're quite dedicated, yes. We demand this level of dedication from all our staff, because we need him to consistently pick up points.
It's been wonderful to spend some time with you. Best of luck out on track.
So now we're going to head into the season break, where we shut down our facilities. And we'll be back for the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, which, as you can see, went out the 24th. So we're going to purchase an upgrade because the weight reduction upgrade failed, and we want to become a better team in the chassis side of things and hopefully leapfrog racing points. But we're going to head into the Belgian Grand Prix, and the weather forecast is mainly dry completely dry for qualifying, mainly dry for the race, but a little bit of rain right at the end of the race, which could spice things up a bit. We also have a durability upgrade, as we did purchase earlier in the episode, but let's go down to some more upgrades at the end of practice. And we're going to upgrade another powertrain component, which will hopefully mean that we're the best team on the grid in terms of power unit wise. We're only behind Mercedes, but Renault are just behind us in that. We're also going to put some new components in because Spa and Monza are two power orientated circuits, so we would like to use a fresh engine for those. But let's head into our first lap in Q1 then, or this is actually our second lap in Q1, as I've cut out our first lap because forgetting that Spa was I knew that Spa was the longest track on the calendar, but I forgot to put enough fuel in the car, and we ran out on the way to the final corner, so that's why we're currently in last, because we've set a 1:45.0, and I'd be expected to be improving by a few seconds on that. So it was my mistake, but as we come to the end of that, we're currently 1.7 seconds up, but as we head through the final corner, we suddenly 3.5 seconds up. As you saw, we gained quite a bit of time from running out of fuel. But we finished the end of the session in P7, and Jack Aitken also makes it through in P12, which is good news for the team. and the people that were knocked out were both Williams, both Haas, and Antonio Giovinazzi and Lando Norris. So Lando Norris, a bit of a shock there. You'd have expected him to make it through to Q2. You'd actually probably expected Giovinazzi to make it through over the AlphaTauris at a circuit like this, but that's not as much of a shock. The Renaults and Racing Points were pretty quick. Well, I mean, especially in the hands of Perez and Ocon. They were up in P4 and P5, ahead of Sebastian Vettel and Alex Albon. But let's head into Q2 now, for this time for our first lap, not for our second lap. But it is going to have to be on a used set of tyres because of what happened in Q1, where I had to use 2 sets of tyres. And that means that we're probably going to be at a slight disadvantage in Q3 and in the race. But we head through Eau Rouge and Mazion, up the Kemmel Straight, and then skip forward to the end of the lap. We're through the bus stop chicane now, and we're going to come across the line in P8 currently on a 142.1, but as we fast forward to the end of the session, we're back down to P14 with Jack Aitken in P16, so hopefully both of us can improve on that lap time as we head through turn 1. We do have a bit of traffic up ahead, but I think we will catch it just as we enter the Kemmel Straight here, so we may be able to pick up a bit of slipstream, and as you can see, from going to being 0.015 up, we're 0.08 up, so thank you Perez. Not such a big thank you to Pierre Gasly, who got in our way at the final corner, but we're still going to improve by about a second, and that will put us in P7 yet again. So 2 sessions in a row we've finished in P7, and that means that we are safely through to Q3, but at the expense of our teammate Jack Aitken, who we ended up knocking out, who was in P10 at the time. He will be starting P11 on a fresh set of tyres, which is good news for him. We'll see what he can do, but the Renault's again looking quick in that session, with Carlos Sainz also up in P4 for McLaren, but Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll were both knocked out in the Racing Points, so that's a bit of a shock, because usually they do make it through to Q3. But let's see what happens in Q3. So on our first lap, we'll head through La Source, and then going slightly wide there, but we pick up an alright amount of traction, again on a used set of tyres. So we head through Eau Rouge and up the sweeping right-hander of Raidillon, and then onto the Kemmel Straight. But we're going to head towards the end of the lap, and after Blanchimont into the bus stop chicane, Hamilton sets the fastest lap. We're not going to be anywhere near that, but where will it put us? It will put us P7 for now, and last in the session. And as we come towards the end of the session, we are currently in P10, and it's going to be quite hard for us to get to P7 in the session as we did in the previous 2, as Vettel's currently in P8, which probably means that he is much quicker than us, but the others are quite quick. As Ricciardo suddenly shoots upwards, as does Ocon, they're both now ahead of Albon, and Hamilton sets an even faster lap time, which we're not going to be matching, and Bottas Flame goes and betters that. But we head into the bus stop chicane, about 1.5 seconds up as we head through the final corner, and on the run down to the line, we claim P9, which are looking at the times at the end of the session was definitely the best we could have achieved.
Qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top 3. Bottas, Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo. Goodbye for now then, but we're really just getting started. Make sure to join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
So Ricciardo up in P3 in the Renault. He wasn't going to match the Mercedes, who always look quite quick. But the Renaults are really mixing it up with the Ferraris and Red Bulls this weekend. They're all separated by about 3 to 4 tenths. from Ricardo to Albon downwards, and then we were a further 5 tenths back.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Ricciardo, Vettel, Charles Leclerc and Verstappen, Ocon, Thomas, Sainz and Jack Aitken, Perez, Raikkonen, Pierre Gasly and Stroll, Norris, Giovinazzi, Alexander Albon. They've taken a grid penalty. And Roman Grosjean, Kvyat, Russell, Magnussen and Nicholas Latifi.
So Alex Albon took a penalty, which allows us to start in P8 and Jack Aitken in P10. So we're starting in the points positions, and hopefully we can keep that way in the race. I am going to risk the softer medium strategy. I would have usually gone for the softer hard, despite the fact that it's slower, but it would suit our tyre wear better. But because of the rain at the end of the race, I thought we'd go aggressive. So we're going to start the race now. We get a good start. We get Ocon off the line, and as we head into last source, we go up the inside of Verstappen and Leclerc. So we squeeze them out on the exit, but we get a tank slap on the exit, and Leclerc pulls back Verstappen pulls back alongside us even. So he's got back past Leclerc, and Leclerc's going to try and go for it into Eau Rouge and Raidillon, and we lose the back end and go very wide there, and we're back down to P7, and Raikkonen's the car directly behind us, so he's made a very good start. But a contrast of emotions for us at the start. We got up to P5, and we're now trying to switch back Leclerc, but with nothing doing, and Raikkonen then tries to switch back us. So rather hectic first lap, but we in P7, so we gained 1 position, but we're going to almost immediately lose that position as Ocon tries to overtake us around the outside of Lake Holm, but we hold the position and stay in P7. We're already losing so much time to Charles Leclerc, and as we head on to lap 3, DRS is enabled, so we're going to have an even harder job of defending from Esteban Ocon, and that is evident as we run slightly wide onto the grass and he just breezes straight past us. I didn't really bother defending it because the Renault do look quicker than us this weekend. We now have Raikkonen directly behind us, and hopefully we can remain ahead of him in this race. But I always found that the AI got a much better exit off La Source and had a much better run through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And I don't really know what it was about the flat out corner of Eau Rouge and Raidillon, because it should just be flat out and you shouldn't be able to gain that much time. But it's like with Maggots and Beckett's it's those corners where the Codys have just programmed the AI to just be too OP around those corners. But we are successfully defending against Raikkonen, and Jeff is telling us that the weather is going to remain clear, so maybe rain will not be coming, as Raikkonen again tries to challenge us, and this time he is actually going to get the move as we can't quite hang it around the outside, and he is up into P8, so he is very quick in the Alfa Romeo right now, and we have a large train behind us. But we're also being overtaken by Sainz into the bus of chicane, so we decide that our tyres are basically gone, and we are going to come into the pits for a new set of medium tyres. Along with Verstappen and Vettel up ahead, but they've both gone for hard tyres, because they obviously don't believe the rain is going to come. But I really hope this will give us the best chance in the race, as we have a decent stop of 2.6. Not the best stop in the world, but we're going to come out in last position, just behind Nicholas Latifi. But we are just about in his DRS range, which should definitely help us as we take out Eau Rouge and Raidillon. And as you see, even Latifi was gaining time on us through that section, as Jeff still thinks that no rain is expected. But as we head later on to lap 7, we just have so much more grip than Nicholas Latifi, and we're going to go round the outside of Puyon, which is not usually an overtaking space, and we get it slightly wrong on the exit and lose the back end. But as we head on to lap 8, we gain back some of the positions as Danny Kvyat is out of the race, so not good news for AlphaTauri. We're back up to P17 and we're only 2 seconds behind Esteban Ocon, who is trying to pressurise Max Verstappen. Our teammate Jack Aitken also pits onto the mediums. And Jeff finally thinks that rain's going to come in 10 to 15 minutes, which will be just before the end of the race, so we'll see whether it makes any difference. Raikkonen and Perez also go onto the medium tyre, and Raikkonen comes out basically side by side with Carlos Sainz, but he just about keeps ahead. Jack Aitken is just behind them in P13, so hopefully he can capitalise on any mistakes they may make when trying to catch me. We are trying to catch Esteban Ocon right now as we head on to lap 11, and we're now only a second behind him. We're all converging in on each other because he is catching Verstappen as well. And as we head on to lap 12, we haven't really gained anything on this lap, and he's, if anything, starting to pull away a bit. The gap's remaining about 1.4 seconds. But on lap 13, Valtteri Bottas comes out of the pit, so he was on the 2-stop, and he may have just thrown away this victory because he got pole position and was leading the race, and now Hamilton is leading it with Ricciardo in P2, then the 2 Ferraris, I believe, and then it's Verstappen and then Bottas who's overtaken Verstappen and Ocon, and then it's Verstappen and Ocon. We are finally now in DRS range of Ocon, but Sainz is also catching up to us from behind, and we're also closing in on Verstappen, both of us, so it seems like we're all converging in on each other. The clouds are starting to darken as well, so Jeff doesn't really know whether we are going to be going on to Indus or not, because he just says dries are the best tyre. He doesn't know when the rain is coming, and as you can see at the end of lap 17, the clouds have really darkened and Carlos Sainz is massively pressurising us. The tyres lost all grip, and I was hoping the rain was going to come for this lap because, as you see, I lost so much time to Verstappen and Ocon ahead, and Ocon's got past Verstappen. We try to defend against Carlos Sainz, but he just has so much more grip and goes around the outside of us into turn 1 and gains the position. And the AI are already quicker through Eau Rouge and Razion, but we're now in the slipstream and we're going to get DRS. We're going to put it up to, we're not even going to put it up to overtake or which, because we just have DRS in the slipstream and we can just go straight back past Carlos Sainz. But the clouds were definitely darkening, and as we head further on onto the end of lap 18, Carlos Sainz is still directly behind us. And the rain has started to come. You can see it on our screen, and I really hope it falls quicker than later because my tyres are really not going to hold out. Carlos Sainz is again going to go for a move for us, but we defend round the outside aggressively into Lecon, and we receive a new strategy option from Jeff, and it is the intermediate tyres. So as right at the end of the lap, DRS gets disabled and everyone is coming into the pits for Inters. And when I mean everyone, I think everyone except for Lance Stroll in the Racing Point comes in this lap.
Okay, the stewards have now disabled DRS. DRS is now disabled.
And we all remain in the same positions roughly, with Leclerc leading Ocon and Verstappen, which looks like it's going to be a battle to the flag, because Verstappen's probably going to be better in those wet conditions, and Leclerc seems to be struggling out there. but we do come out in P9 because obviously we lose the position to Lance Stroll, who is up there with the Mercedes right now. But as we head later to lap 20, we were 6 seconds behind Verstappen and Ocon, and you can see how much they're being held up by Lance Stroll, because look at just how the gap just comes crashing down. It's like anyone who stayed out on the dry tyres, I know only one person did it, would have been, so it was a terrible idea. You see Stroll is just falling down and Verstappen overtakes him now for P7. So he comes into pits at the end of the lap, and we're only a second behind Verstappen, who is lost out to Ocon. And actually, at some point on that lap, I looked at the end of the race, Ocon got past Leclerc, and then Leclerc got back past him because they were fighting behind Stroll, because Stroll was just holding them up. And then Leclerc overtook Stroll, and Leclerc just pulled away a few seconds. I think Ocon would have got Leclerc otherwise, but as we come to the end of lap 22, Hamilton wins the Grand Prix, and Daniel Ricciardo gets P2 for Renault, so a shock podium for them, but they look very quick this weekend. And Ocon does take home P6 in the out of the car, but will take home P8. So, decent result for us as Albon wins driver of the day, and I think we maximised our potential.
Well, the gap at the top of the championship has been cut down after a difficult race today for our championship leader. Let's focus on the driver of the day. Anthony Davidson, who do you pick?
Well, for me, it's got to be Lewis Hamilton. The multiple world champion may be the boring choice at this point, but you can't argue that he's a driver deserving of his reputation.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Meanwhile, Renault move up the table with another strong performance this weekend. I'm equal parts exhausted and elated with this weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for the next one.
So Hamilton wins the Grand Prix from Ricciardo, who was only 4 seconds behind. He kept touch with Hamilton, and Vettel took home P3 after Bottas made a questionable strategy choice, which sort of threw away his race victory. But Leclerc takes home P5, Ocon P6, another good result for Renault, and Verstappen P7. Then we take home P8 in a sort of best of the rest manner, even though Albon wasn't quite up there because he couldn't recover from this grid penalty. Sainz takes home P9, and Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo picks home the final points position, ahead of both Perez and Albon, who you'd have expected to finish ahead. Our teammate Jack Aitken didn't have a great race, considering at the end of the pit stops he was about 3 seconds behind us. He ended up finishing over half a minute behind us, which I think we need to see better results than that, because yeah, he was 30.4 seconds behind us in just one stint, and he was battling for points, and that isn't good enough, let's say. But he only finished ahead of the Haas's and Williams cars, who we're definitely better than them. We're also better than the Alpha Tauris and some of the other cars as well. In the championship, Bottas still leads, even though his gap is cut down because of his poor strategy today. Vettel is still in P3, and Verstappen is still holding Charles Leclerc for P4, and we are P6 and extending our gap to Albon, which wasn't really a gap because we were tied on points. Ricciardo goes up to P8 in the championship, and Perez is P9. Carlos Sainz remained in P10, and Ocon jumps Norris, Raikkonen and Stroll to get to P11, and our teammate Jack Aitken stays in P15 in the championship, only ahead of Haas, Williams, Alpha Tauris and Giovinazzi. In the constructors' standings, Mercedes extend their lead and they're dominating this season. Ferrari are second by some distance over Red Bull, and we remain in P4. But Renault overtake Racing Point with that great result and look to pressurise us. So hopefully we can keep them behind.
That was an exciting race from our perspective. Let's have yours. How did your team respond to the poor conditions today?
Well, they did brilliantly. They put me on a decent strategy.
Collisions?
Well, I did find that in the wet conditions with the tyres, I just didn't know how much power my car was going to give me. I just felt like sometimes I was just too trigger happy in a way.
That's everything.
But we currently level 8 and level 10 as a team, with Jack Aiken actually losing some acclaim to go further down his level 7. We don't complete the goal of getting 100 laps in the race weekend because Spa is the track with the least amount of laps on the calendar, and we both have some damage deductions, but we still gain some money. But I'm going to leave the episode there, and I'll see you guys next time for the Italian Grand Prix.